Halloween. The bell in Pinehollow doesn't ring. It bleeds, and under the blood moon, two hunters finally catch what's been hunting their name. If you hear a laugh in the trees, don't turn. Count your teeth. You'll need all of them. I'm your narrator from Whispering Narratives, where legends don't sleep and the moon keeps receipts. If the dark ever looked back at you, subscribe now and step closer to the fire. Tonight's tale, The Hallowed Hunt. Garrett and Elara, lovers bound by silver and bad promises, walk into the woods to end an old curse. The woods have better plans. Headlamps off. Breath held. The drag marks shine red in moonlight. On my count, he says. 1, 2, 3. Halloween. A bell tolls midnight from a church long abandoned, its bronze throat choked with ivy and crow nests. The Pinehollow road gleams with rain, and jack-o'-lanterns gutter in the wind. Orange mouths stuttering like dying candles in a morgue. A child's plastic bat lies broken in the ditch. A bag of fun-size candy bars spills like teeth. In the timberline beyond the last porch light, two beams of headlamps shear the dark and cut across tree trunks as if sawing them down. Garrett Hale moves first, shoulders broad beneath an oilskin coat, crossbow slung, breath steam-white. Elara Vale follows, braid wet to the spine, fingers inked with self-drawn runes that peek from her sleeves like nervous birds. The map in her pocket is older than both of them combined. Each crease is a confession. Listen, Garrett whispers. The forest answers with a soft, distant keening. Not a wolf, not a wind, something stretched between prayer and metal. The sound tingles the back of the teeth. The moon, swollen and arterial, presses out from behind tattered clouds, blood bright and watching. They step over a barbed wire fence devoured by oak roots and into the deer path locals call Widow's Vein. Their boots sink in black leaves. Ravens tick their claws on bark. Something has been dragged through here, heavy, insistent, leaving fur in snags and a slick that reflects red when the moon breathes. Elara touches the drag marks, then her own throat. It's fresh. Then it ends tonight. They say that every year. The bell tolls again, slower, wetter, as if something is caught in the clapper. Their headlamps flicker. Garrett clicks his off. Elara follows, and the dark folds around them like a damp coat. There, the sound again, closer now, cutting through brush, circling them with the dispassion of weather. Garrett raises the crossbow. Elara kisses the rune on her wrist, the one for return. On my count, he breathes. 1, 2. The forest inhales. 3. They move. A shadow bigger than arithmetic slides between twin pines. The red moon crawls free of cloud, and for a single second the shape is carved in light. A back, like a grave mound, shoulders that don't belong to a deer, a head that refuses the law of dogs, a tail that is not a tail, but a flag of darker night. A low chuckle, not human, not animal, not fair. Elara's heart stutters. Garrett fires, the bolt whispers. The moon holds its breath. A scream answers, doubling in the branches, folding around itself like a body. Leaves burst upward. The shadow is gone. The bolt head hums in the bark where its heart wasn't. Garrett reloads with shaking hands. Keep the light low. Garrett, did you see its eyes? I saw where it wasn't. A wet drip hits Elara's cheek. She wipes it and stares. Not water, not sap. Metallic, warm. She looks up. Something stares down from the crook of branches, a face half behind leaves, half inside a nightmare. Its muzzle is wrong, its teeth are wronger, its eyes are old, older than their hunt, older than the church, older than the bell choking on ivy. They glow not amber, not red, but a sickle silver that looks like laughter pretended to be light. The creature peels backward, boneless, and drops into the brush without sound. Run, Elara says, but her voice won't go. The bell tolls a third time. The blood moon rises another inch. The hunt begins. They move at a crouch down the narrow artery of the forest, headlamps off, breath rationed. The trail reeks now, copper, musk, wet fur, old pennies sucked by a child until the tongue goes numb. Garish little plastic ghosts hang from a hunter's, blind to their right, soaked to paper pulp. Something has smeared 4 long gouges through them, as if the blind offended the season. Garrett signals. Ilara nods, then points. There's a den somewhere west. She knows it by the angle of the pines, by the way the ground bowls inward, as if the land were tired and lay down to sleep. Their boots find prints shaped like hands that learned a different alphabet. Sometimes they are paws, sometimes they are feet, sometimes they are both, overlaid, arguing. Think it's one? Garrett asks. Lara's eyes move. I think it knows how to be many. Pack, mask. The path forks. Left goes toward the creek, right toward the old church that keeps tolling without sense. The sound grows thicker as fog presses down, each strike of the bell less like a ring and more like a throat clearing. Blood. The red light paints the fog in diluted wine. Their faces become low-relief sculptures above their collars. They choose right. A hush falls that is not wind, not quiet. It is the hush of a stage after the first footstep, the hush of an audience arranging knives and napkins. Ilara's neck pricks. She palms a glass ampule, milky liquid, a sliver of moon caught in it, and fits it to the mouth of a throwing dart. If it closes, hold it long enough for this to matter. How long is long enough? She doesn't answer. They pass the bones of a buck slurped clean but laced together again with vine, as if the forest were studying how to rebuild what it had broken. From the antlers hangs a rosary. The crucifix is bitten in half. The chain clinks like teeth. You hear that? Garrett says. No. Exactly. The bell has stopped. Something else begins. Leaves to their right shrug softly. Ilara spins. A light catches what it is meant to catch. Nothing at all. But her other senses, the ones honed in the years since the first time they promised to end it, hear the slow click of claws picking a place to put weight. The creature matches their steps, half a beat delayed as if rehearsing them. Garrett, she whispers, it's walking inside our footsteps. He looks down. There, in the soft black, the print he just made extends itself, deepening, widening, smiling without a mouth. It's between us, he says, and the fog answers by becoming a wall. He reaches for Ilara and touches fur. The forest snaps. Garrett slams backward into a stump and ricochets into the mud. His headlamp flies. The beam spins and paints a carousel of horror around them, trunks like ribs, roots like fingers, a shadow shouldering the light aside as if light were weather and it could choose. Ilara lunges, rune-writ hand outstretched, and the creature slips past with a dancer's contempt. A palm meets its flank for a heartbeat. The hair there is winter thick. Beneath it the muscle moves like someone rolling under a sheet. Ow! Garrett shouts. He fires. Ilara throws. A bolt catches fur. The ampule catches mouth. The world snarls. The creature's jaws close on glass. Moonmilk bursts. It staggers, gagging, furious, coughing light. Silver froth drips, hissing where it hits leaves. It rakes the air. Splinters of old wood rain from a scar tree it catches with one hand. Garrett bolts forward to pin, to stab, to finish. He's fast. He's done this. He knows this dance, and this time he means to lead. The creature isn't in that song. It vanishes between beats, leaves a pressure like thunder nearby, and reappears at Garrett's back. His coat lifts. He screams at the first bite. Lower ribs, a meat grab. It shakes him like a bell shakes its own sound loose. His crossbow claps the ground and says nothing. Ilara moves without thinking. She drives her forearm into the creature's eye. It lets go to cut her instead. But she's already gone. She ghosts left, feints right, comes up with the silver hook from her belt, and snags the thing's lip. It laughs. No breath, only teeth, and backhands her across the clearing so hard that the moon staggers. She hears something in her shoulder, pop like a grape squeezed too hard. Run. Garrett gasps through blood. But Ilara sees his eyes glazed and too bright. She sees the bite, which is not clean, not surgical, more like a slow letter being carved into skin by a hand that wants to be understood. She drags him up. You run. A foxfire glow licks along the creature's gums as the moon heaves into another red swell. The fog laces itself into veils. Somewhere, the church bell remembers itself and tolls once as if apologizing. They break into a stumble run, every tree trunk now a possible thing. The forest gives them no sense of distance. Time goes liquid. Behind them, the creature walks, not hurrying, not needing to. It will catch them at the church. It wants to hear the bell up close when it takes back what they stole. The church squats in a clearing like a grave marker for the living. The stained glass is long gone. Boards nail the holes like eyelids. The steeple lists. The door, oak fat with rain, gapes open, or maybe that's a mouth too. Moss covers the steps like remembrance. They cross the threshold into cold that's different from night. Benches sleep beneath a shawl of dust. The bell rope dangles like an old vein. The altar cloth is the color of a bruise you're hiding. Over everything, a dry sweetness, oil and time. Ilara wedges the door with a fallen pew plank. Garrett sags against the font, blood turning the water the color of bad wine. He laughs once, thin. So if it kills us in here, is that sacrilege or sacrament? Hold still. She cleans the wound with the last of their sterile from a kit that says its own prayers in numbers and ounces. The bite is deep. The edges radiate starbursts of little slashes where extra teeth worried the skin like anxious thoughts. Tell me the truth, he says. It'll scar. Before that, Ilara does not answer. She unfolds gauze. She studies the bite like a map she's seen before. She has your runes, he says. You brought the ones for binding and for mercy. Her voice is a wire. Which one goes on me? She does not answer. She ties off. The bell rope swings though no wind moves. She sets her palm on Garrett's cheek. His fever comes on with indecent speed. The way a storm sometimes chooses a field for lightning over and over as if it knew the name of the grain growing there. The door booms. They both look. Not a knock. Not an attempt, a warning. Like a cat patting a thing it will tear later, promising it remembers. The rafters creak as something climbs them. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Pause. Scratch, 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 pause. The pattern wants to be language, but it prefers hunger. Ilara eases Garrett down and stands. Her right hand shakes, her left is stone. She breathes smoke out and draws the rune knife. It is small. It makes holy things of little cuts. The bell rope twitches again. Her eyes lift, nothing there but a whisper of dust spiraling like a faint applause. She takes a step toward the aisle. The creature drops through the ceiling. It lands where the aisle meets the altar like a sin that no one owned up to until it grew legs. Dust leaps, boards complain. In the robe of moonlight tattered by the rafters, it is worse than the woods allowed. Its legs are too long, reversed in a way that mocks knees. Its hands are too clever, knuckle pads scabbed with old silver burns. Its face wears the raw joke of human angles arranged according to a forest grammar. Cheekbones sharpened, brow flattened, a mouth made for a bigger word than bite. Ilara throws holy water without remembering she grabbed the font top. The liquid hits the creature's chest and turns to steam with a smell like coins and rain. It snarls, shakes its pelt, grins. The grin is new. It learned that from them. Garrett's hand claws for the crossbow. He finds nothing but flaw. Well, he says. She steps between. Take me then. It cocks its head. The exact cock Ilara has seen Garrett do when a radio transmission garbles. Time warps. For a breath she sees both of them, her lover and this thing overlapped like ghosts in old double-exposed film. She blinks and loses that kindness forever. The creature moves, and she meets it. They collide in a mess of rune and fang. The knife carves letters in the black fur. The fur writes counterspells in her skin. She gets the hook in again, rips the corner of its mouth. It laughs through meat and keeps coming, kisses her cheek with a scrape of teeth that is all promise. She slams its wrist into the altar's edge. The old wood cracks where softer throats once confessed. It rakes her ribs and counts them. Garrett tries to rise, fails, crawls. His fingers find a fallen bolt beneath the pew. He doesn't have the bow. He doesn't need it. He lets the bolt do what it was made to do, be point and line and intent. He lunges and drives it under the creature's armpit where armor is hardest to wear. It screams properly now, voice like a door ripped from hinges. It spins, flinging Alara and pins Garrett to the floor with both hands. Its breath is a furnace. Its eyes are moons. Not him. Alara hears herself roar, a sound that's bigger than her lungs. She's on her feet before her feet remember blood. She slashes the rune for offer across her own palm and presses it to the creature's shoulder. The rune burns. The creature jerks, as if remembering a language it tried to forget. It looks from Alara to Garrett and back. A decision crosses its face and doesn't finish. Then the bell tolls from directly above, though no one pulls the rope. The sound reverbs the bones of the church, the bones of Garrett, the bones of Alara, the bones of whatever the creature uses. The glassless windows tremble, dust fountains. The creature flinches. Garrett uses that flinch to jam the bolt deeper. Alara uses that flinch to draw a second rune, bind, in the air with her blood and slap it to the creature's chest. For a heartbeat it works. For a heartbeat. It is a dog, a man, a statue, an absence. Then the red moon swells and the bind melts off like wax. The creature decides. It takes Garrett's wrist in its mouth and bites clean to the scar lattice of the old hunt. Alara screams so loud the bell. Rope stops moving. Garrett's scream is shorter. He folds without folding, like a tent going down in a wind it knew was coming. Alara throws herself at the thing again with no plan but annihilation. It lets go of Garrett, dots her forehead with a delicate tap of one blood-wet claw, as if knighting her, then turns and goes straight out through the nailed boards like a thought exits a skull, sudden, rude, inevitable. The church shudders, rain breathes, silence kneels. Alara staggers to Garrett. His eyes are two candles shoved into bad weather. His pulse is trying to find a door. "I've got you," she says and hears herself lying. "I've got you." He smiles the way he smiled the first time she touched his shoulder in a motel off Route 11 after they failed to kill something smaller and younger and dumber than this. "Do me a favor," he whispers. "If I start to, you won't. If I do, make it quick." She closes her eyes and says nothing. The bell forgives no one. Outside, the forest begins to clap very slowly. It starts in the fingertips, as if ants were learning a hymn in his skin. Garrett's hands twitch. His bitten wrist pulses around the twin moons of puncture marks, like something under ice hitting it from beneath. The veins ladder up his arm, and light silver for a flicker before going back to purple. His breath syncopates. "L," he says, and his voice is two voices speaking into the same throat. "L, the floor is too loud." She holds him, and the floor is just boards, and the boards try to hold too, but he slips from human measurements. The fever climbs. He pants. He laughs without wanting to, a hiccup of sound that shows too many teeth. His eyes water, the pupils unbutton. "Stay with me," she says. "Look at me. Don't look at the moon." He looks at her, and she sees his mother. A teenage boy with a borrowed truck, a man buying a ring he never got to use because the hunt kept taking the dates they meant to have. She sees his whole life time-lapse into this throat. She wants to punch God. His back arches. Something in his shoulder rotates, something not designed to. But the rotation makes a terrible sense, the way a nightmare sometimes reveals a truth about stairs. His nails creak as if remembering a different material. His teeth press against the back of his lips with the impatience of travelers pushing at customs. He giggles. It isn't Garrett's laugh. "It's funny," he says in a voice he borrowed from a dark hallway. It's funny how long I waited outside. Garrett, she says, and slices a small cross in the air with her knife, steadies her hand, draws 3 quick runes on his clavicle. Anchor, home, stay. They glow, then gutter. The moon wants the ink back. The skin at his ribs froths. A second heartbeat starts, then a third, then a drumline. Bones click together like a choir warming up. His cheeks hollow and then balloon. His jaw hinges pop with a wet music. Hair farms itself from follicles, speeding through seasons in seconds until his forearm wears a winter he didn't buy. Don't scream, he says. Very small. I'll scream for you, she says, and does. Low first, then high, then the middle where humans live. So he doesn't have to, until he does anyway. And then it's both of them. The fingers lengthen like a shadow at sundown, and keep going. Knuckles drag forward. The thumb retreats from the handshake and becomes a tool for the ground. The bitten wrist shudders and splits, not bleeding so much as changing flavors. Every new inch of him is a confession. Every confession is a tooth. His spine decides to be a different animal. It stacks, it undulates, it grows hooks to hang new muscles on. His shoulders widen without asking. The jacket tears open with a sigh it was saving. The sound is obscene and sacred, like a church losing its roof to a storm while the choir keeps singing because the sheet music said there was still a verse to go. L, he says. But now there are harmonics in his name, a growl plaited through. L, it smells so what? True. The word hurts. She grips his face between her palms, thumbs on his cheeks, rubbery hair under her fingers. Garrett Hale, I know your name. I know your first lie. I know the day you almost quit and didn't. I know the scar on your hip that's not from any hunt, but from falling off your cousin's roof at 12. Stay with me, he tries to. God forgive him, he tries. But the moon is not asking anymore. It sets its red hand on his skull and presses. His brow lengthens forward. His nose becomes a traveler, impatient, trying to be first to arrive. His tongue decides language was a favor it no longer needs to do. He drinks air as if it were broth. After a long sickbed, he looks at Elara one last time from a human eye. I'm sorry, he says. For what? For what I want to do to you. Then the last hinge unhinges, the last seam splits, the last human courtesy recedes, and the thing wearing Garrett stands up into its new height, wobbling, baby elk awkward. Brutal as a door, Elara steps back, knife ready and useless. Tears salt her mouth. She is not crying from fear. She is crying from recognition. This face, wrong as a false map, still holds his stubborn line of jaw. The crease beside the eye from laughing in cars between hunts, the habit of cocking the head when he hears static. It is him. It is not. It is. Bell rope whispers down, as if offering a neck. The new Garrett, call him the wolf if you must, though the wolf you know would be offended, sniffs the air and finds a scent more intoxicating than blood. Elara's pulse. He sways toward it, drunk with the idea of how easily necks open. Easy, she says. Easy, love. He blinks, fast. Something behind the silver eyes knocks on a locked door. The lock does not answer. His lips peel. The teeth that were not jokes are no longer funny. He lunges. Elara moves as if the floor were an ally. She rolls. Under the pew comes up with a standing candelabrum like a lance and drives it into his attack arc. He hits it, tangles, laughs. He backhands it into splinters. He comes again, using the bench like a stepping stone to the altar, and she is already elsewhere, running the aisle backward, counting breaths, calculating not survival but seconds. Seconds until what? Until the bell tolls at the right time. She grabs the rope with both hands and yanks. Above them in the night, the bell gives up a sound so enormous it bruises the air. The wave hits the wolf like a wall, sound becoming force, force becoming maybe a leash. He flinches, snarls, paws at his own ear, shakes as if water drenched him. He staggers into the font and knocks it over. Holy water floods like a small drowned river. He looks at the spill on his feet and howls almost like he hates it. Elara wraps the rope around her forearms and throws all of herself into a second pull. The bell screams again, and this time splinters pop from the rafters. The wolf buckles. His breath stutters. Elara sees, God help them both, Garrett beneath the hair for an instant, like a diver glimpsed through a red lake. Gar, she starts. The rope burns her palms. The bell, hit too hard, too low, skews on its axis and seizes like a heart seizing. The tone dies in a choked cough. The wolf looks up and then at her. The look is not hungry. It is disappointed. He comes for her with purpose. She drops the rope, vaults through the side sacristy door, and the church vomits her into a corridor of wet stone and old vestments that smell like funerals and mice. The wolf smashes the doorframe behind her without changing speed. Splinters paper the air. She cuts left into a closet, right into a larder of rotten communion bread, then down a narrow stair she never noticed. Her lamp has been gone since the fight. The dark is arterial. She counts steps by feel. 20, 30, 40. Stone opens. Underfoot into dirt, and the earth says, down. She takes it. She runs into a crypt older than the church, older than the bell, older than the story that built the church here in the first place. Niches hold skulls that are not sure they admire her courage. A trickle of water stitches the floor. Somewhere rats applaud. The air is cold and close and tender with bones. Behind her, the wolf coughs rubble out of his throat and squeezes down the stair. He won't fit. He does. The stone complains in a voice only stone has, the voice of something patient finally being tested. She ducks into a side passage and waits, knife low, breath measured, then throws a small tin of powdered silver across the corridor into the dark and sprints the other way. Behind her, the wolf inhales the glitter and sneezes hard enough to move dust from centuries. He shakes, pissed, his own breath cutting him. He howls, and the howl goes into the narrow space and comes out wrong, faster, tighter, like a bullet ricocheting. Elara takes a ladder of damp iron rungs into a tighter room still. There is a stone table in the center, blackened as if something once burned not upon it, but within it. A circle of old ash says the word ritual quietly. A single iron ring is set into the floor, chain rotted off long ago. She puts her back to the wall and breathes, counting. Heartbeats, footfalls above, the tick of drips. She times them like a thief times a guard. The far wall shifts, not a door, a panel. Something in the stone wants to not be stone tonight. It slides, slow. A wind comes through, not air, forest. Fresh rot, new leaves, the musk of a living thing very close to your throat. She should not go in. She goes in. Behind that panel is a root tunnel. Pine fingers have braided a throat through earth. The red moon has touched even here. A burgundy glow leaks through cracks like the light is learning to dig. The tunnel is just big enough for a girl who believes in terrible things, just small enough for a wolf who would rather make a new tunnel than use a polite one. Elara crawls. Dirt fills her mouth. Roots scrape her face as if tasting. Her shoulder screams where the backhand from earlier wrote its name. She keeps the knife in her teeth because hands have to be more than hands. She emerges into the forest like a birth gone wrong. Body first, then soul. The night feels different on this side of the church, as if the trees here are on his payroll. The bell tolls once, far away, thin, and dies. The fog stands up as if it has bones. She chooses not to run. Running is for quarry the predator has already understood. She chooses to vanish. She lies in the wet ferns, cuts 3 fast runes on the back of her left hand, not seen, not heard, not tasted, and presses that palm into the mud over her own mouth. The world steps aside from her, not because it wants to, because she asked nicely, and sometimes that works. The wolf explodes from the root tunnel, enraged by dirt, wearing cobwebs like a mocked veil. He stops dead. He drinks the night with his nose. He takes one step toward the ferns where Ilara does not exist and then jerks away, baffled. He stalks past her, furious at the empty that smells like everything he wants. He vanishes left into a stand of saplings. Ilara exhales a breath. She had been saving for a different lifetime. She rises. She moves the way the fog moves. She takes pains to break no sticks. She becomes a rumor. A twig pops to her right. She freezes, measures, maps the sound to distance. Not the wolf. 2 feet, 2 lungs, too shallow, too fast. She pivots, knife forward, and a boy staggers out of the brush, maybe 11, face ash-streaked, hoodie ripped, eye whites shocking in all this red. He throws himself at her with blind mammal hope. She catches him by instinct, knife nearly an accident between them. Help. He sobs without sound, only body. Please. What are you doing out here? She whispers. They told us to run when the bell rang, but the apple bobbing took longer and he gulps. My sister, she hid in the culvert. I couldn't pull her out. There was a thing. His voice breaks on the shape of the word. It laughed. Ilara closes her eyes 1/2 of a second. The world is irresponsible, sending her children when she already owes everything. Where? He points with both hands like prayer. North, toward a cut in the earth where the old storm culvert runs under Widow's Vein Road. Go to the church, she says. Stay outside it, if you hear the bell. Put your hands over your ears and your heart under your tongue. He looks at her like that could be literal. If you see a man, she adds, and her voice trembles just once, with eyes like the wrong moon, run. He nods and scuttles. Ilara turns north. Behind her, the wolf returns to the ferns, silent, as winter silent as theft. He watches the boy go. He watches Ilara go. His head cocks. He chooses. He follows Ilara. The storm culvert yawns like a history the town stopped telling. Concrete chewed at the edges by roots. Graffiti from teenagers who learned to write their names with fear. The water in it is the temperature of a lie. Moonlight lays a red ribbon. On the trickle, Ilara crouches at the mouth and listens. Something breathes inside that is not air. A whisper, too regular to be wind, too wrong to be a prayer. Then small fingers on concrete, a child's whimper that immediately tries to become nothing. It's all right, Ilara says to the dark, which is a mistake in 10 languages. I'm here. The answer comes like a click of a lock. Are you? Says a voice, not a girl's, wearing a girl's shape to be polite. Ilara moves a step backward before pride arrests her. The shape in the culvert uncoils. It is a girl, thin, knobby-kneed, eyes too big. But her shadow says something else is hugging her from behind with long arms, and the fingers of that hug are along her ribs from within. When the girl smiles, another mouth behind her teeth smiles too. Step out, Ilara says. Knife down now, not from mercy but strategy. I can't. The girl's voice is soft as torn fabric. He said we're safest in the pipe where the bell can't ring, right? Who said? Your husband. The girl blinks sweetly. Ilara's knife point dips into earth. He said you'd come, the girl adds, and behind her eyes a small wicked pride flares like a match. Garrett, or what wore him, he's her husband only in jokes they never dared. Finish. But the forest doesn't hear that nuance. Ilara swallows a stone. The wolf steps out behind Ilara then, silently, lovingly, until his breath moves the hair on her neck. The girl claps, delighted, like a game arrived at last. Ilara doesn't turn. She knows when prey turns. She keeps her eyes forward on the girl and addresses the thing behind her without giving it the dignity of a face. Let the child go, she says to the forest voice. The wolf leans closer. His muzzle grazes her braid. He inhales and makes a low, content sound at the smell of her scalp, shampoo and sweat and night. He could take the back of her neck in one butter-soft bite. He doesn't. He is curious about what she will do with hopelessness. The girl's other mouth yawns wide behind her teeth. A long, tendril dark tongue touches the concrete and tastes the moon. She shivers in pleasure at iron. Elara puts her knife down. The wolf stills, surprised, then delighted. She raises both empty hands, palms outward. Trade, she says. You want what I am, I want what she isn't. The girl tilts her head. The second mouth laughs. We already took our bite, the knot girl says with her mouth closed. From him, from you later. This is our night. Do you taste it? The clock is an animal. The bell feeds it. Everyone who says trick or treat is praying to us by accident. Elara closes her eyes and sees 100 suburban porches, plastic skeletons nodding in wind, children's breath making white ghosts, bowls of candy like little altars. The old pact never went away. It became decoration. You mock us, Elara says softly. But you still came to the culvert. Why hide if you own the night? A flash of ugliness crosses the knot girl's face. Because some bells still bite, she spits. And some names still hurt if you whisper them in the right place. And some women. Her eyes flick toward Elara's rune-inked wrists with a respect that looks like contempt. Still bleed in ways that stain the dark. Let her go, Elara repeats, and steps between the wolf and the girl by mere inches. The wolf's chest brushes her shoulder. He rumbles like a truck idling in a tunnel. He leans until his chin is over her head, mouth open enough to rain heat on her face. He wants to know whether she flinches. She smiles a terrible small smile. Garrett, she says, not pleading, not begging, naming. Hail. The name hits him like a thrown stone. He jerks, eyes flicker, pupils pinwheel. He snarls as if a memory bit him. Sit, Elara says low. Heal. The words are humiliations. He hates them. He loves them because they ask him to be smaller, and that is easier than being this much beast. He takes half a step back, the tiniest mercy, and the knot girl hisses, angry at the shifting gravity. Elara uses that half step like a battlefield. She slides forward, palms out, speaking runes under breath, not cutting now, only asking, return, return, return. The knot girl laughs, but her laugh snaps as Elara moves faster than the word human says she should. Elara scoops the girl by the armpits, ripping the shadow's fingers free one by one, with the strength of someone who has carried heavier grief. The second mouth bites her palm hard. Elara shoves a handful of powdered rosemary and salt into that mouth and whispers a kitchen prayer her grandmother believed in. The shadow coughs, bended by domestic things, and recoils. Run, Elara tells the real portion of the girl, and shoves. The girl runs. The knot girl's tongue snaps, cracking concrete where ankle bone was a second ago. The wolf lunges to punish the theft, but Elara is already in his mouth, both hands inside, grabbing his jaws the way you break a trap in the woods, by being stupider and braver than it deserves. His teeth cut her palms. She shouts into his throat, a sound that is not hers, but belongs to women who have dragged sons from wars and lovers from rivers. Remember, she snarls into his hot dark. Say it with me, Arrett. A shudder runs down his body like a cold file. The eyes flicker. The power that isn't moon catches on a burr and hesitates. Garrett, she repeats, you are not a clock the bell wound. You are not an errand the moon sent. She takes a risk that will ruin her if she is wrong. You are a man who once forgot my birthday and spent 3 days making it up to me with cinnamon rolls until I forgave you. The wolf's breath hitches an odd human sound. Human. He sneezes the memory like pepper. Elara uses that sneeze to slide out of his mouth and slap the rune home onto his sternum with both her blood-slick hands. For a heartbeat, the red light in him dims. The knot girl screams, and the woods scream with her. The culvert groans and the concrete splits and water gushes. The earth below them lowers 1 inch, then another. The world is tired of this story and wants to bury it. The wolf shakes his head like a dog shaking river off. The rune glows. Then gutters, he looks at Ilara as if from a long tunnel. "L," he says, "or the shape of it. Stay." She breathes. The red moon blinks. He chooses. He throws himself away from her and onto the not girl. His jaws close on the shadow's midsection, and for a second, he is every dog that ever defended a child. His teeth find something under the glamour. It pops like an overripe fruit squirting black wine. The not girl howls in a frequency that breaks crow eggs in their nests. The wolf shakes the shadow like it shook him earlier. He is effective. He is terrible. He is precisely what the night wanted, aimed in a direction that is not Ilara. When he finishes, what's left of the glamour melts down the culvert like offended rain. The real girl's sobs collapse into exhausted hiccups at the mouth of the tunnel above. Her brother grabs her, and they flee. 2 little animals who will tell this wrong and be believed. Ilara staggers, palms lacework of red, shoulder a hot coal, ribs a carillon. She wants to lie down on the wet and be a stone. She does not, because the wolf turns back toward her at once. Purpose is spent. Hunger again, the only boss. He licks shadow from his muzzle like jam. He steps. She takes her last inch of courage and spends it. "Then I choose too," she says into the teeth of his step. She opens her mouth and bites the meat of his forearm as he grabs her. Her teeth are human. The effort is stupid, but blood is a covenant. She takes a mouthful of him into her, and the moon inside him laughs in hers, and the red sky above them hums, and the bell somewhere fails to warn anyone. He lifts her by that arm, carrying her like a grocery he will eat in the next aisle. He pads toward the church where the rope dangles, and the altar waits to be a table again. The forest applauds, slow. Back in the church, the bell sours on the air. The candles they never lit have burned to nubs anyway, seasonal drafts, old rituals finishing themselves. The wolf drags Ilara to the altar and sets her down like an offering. He stands over her, with a priest's gravity. "Do it," she pants. "But look me in the eyes when you do." He does. For a long moment, the red and the human take turns in his gaze like 2 children slapping the same toy. The human wins for half a second. He flinches as if struck. "Run," he says, Garrett's voice ruined. "Together," she says, and the word together does something ugly to the moonlight. His claws curl. He splits the altar cloth with one idle thought. He leans. He opens his mouth. Ilara put more runes on him than she knows. Every touch, every call, every remembering. They add up now. They make a net he can't quite see. He shudders, bows under a weight that isn't there, looks toward the door where dawn is arguing with fog. He turns and sprints for the threshold as if hurdling a different fate, slamming into the plank jam, shoving it aside, bursting into the grey hour in 3 bounds, and is gone, a rumor peeling down Widow's Vein toward the hills. Ilara lies on the altar and shakes until shaking is boring. When she can, she sits, then stands. The church smells like her blood and Garrett's and a dozen old feasts, and beneath it all a faint cinnamon ghosts the air, memory playing its last trick. She steps into the yard. The fog thins. The crows have shut up. They're busy remembering where they left their names. The sky is a wet paper bag prepping for sunrise. Garrett stands 20 yards away, naked, horrible with dirt and scratches, human to the nail. He is himself the way a house is itself after fire, recognizable, ruined, defiant. He won't look at her at first. He stares at his hands like criminals that got away with something he didn't okay. "I hurt you," he says. "You didn't. I wanted to." "Wanting isn't doing," she says, and wishes it were true in every court. He finally meets her eyes. What lives in them is exhaustion, wonder, and the very specific grief of a man who became the thing he hunted and felt both the guilt and the relief. "I remember the cinnamon," he says, and his mouth crooks. "I weaponized domesticity," she says. "Sue me." He steps closer, he stops. "If we stay," he says, "they will come. Hunters we used to call friends. Cops who listened to our stories out of politeness until tonight. The children will say what they saw, and most will edit out the parts their brains can't wear. But one will not. He will say everything, and that boy's father will have a gun with his great-grandfather's initials carved into it. We will be legends, and then a warning, and then a stain. We were always a stain," she says, and laughs once. "What now? The moon owes me," she says. I bid it back. He blinks at that, then begins to laugh, small and honestly, like someone waking up in a wreck and finding a joke. He wipes his face with both hands and looks at the red abandoning sky. There's a bridge out there. Old highway, mile marker 33. Under it, the river is shallow enough to cross without stirring more than silt. He swallows. We can make the ridge. There's a cave. I made it ready years ago in case we failed. Food, water, clothes. A radio that only works when you slap it. "You plan to fail," she says. "I plan to survive failing." She nods once. "Then we aren't hunted, we are migrating." He goes so still a god would listen. Yes. Again, you'll say my name like it matters," she says, "and I'll say stay." He nods. The crows find their voices again. They move. Every step is a promise. At Widow's Vein Road, they find the girl and her brother holding hands so tight the knuckles are religion. The children freeze when they see Garrett. He freezes too. Wolf flicker in his eyes, human smothering it with both hands. Elara kneels to the children. "If you tell them what you saw, they'll call you liars, and then they'll call you heroes, and then they'll call you bait," she says, and watches truth land like a moth on their shoulders. "So tell them this. A woman screamed at a monster until it stopped, that's all." The boy nods, awe cutting through fear. The girl studies Garrett with a small scientist's face, then steps forward and touches his wrist, exactly where the bite is a new moon on skin. "You looked sad when you were big," she says. "Don't be sad." Garrett makes a sound that isn't a laugh and isn't a sob. "I'll try," he says. They go. The ridge opens. The first honest light of November combs the leaves. At the high place above the river, Elara and Garrett look back at Pinehollow. The bell is quiet. Smoke rises from 3 chimneys the way forgiveness sometimes does. Late, thin, sincere. Lara takes his hand. His pulse is a stubborn drummer. "Listen," she says. From far, far off, one last howl answers the daylight, richer than fear, poorer than peace. It is not his. It is not hers. It is the forest clearing its throat for the next verse. Garrett squares his shoulders. "We hunt it?" "No," she says, surprising herself with the taste of the word. "We learn it. And if learning turns into killing, we'll know which is which this time." He nods. "What if the moon calls me tonight? Then I'll call louder." They descend toward the cave that has been ready for years and just found out why. And before the story lets go, while the camera breathes on their backs and the ridge wind fingers her braid and his scars, Elara turns her head and speaks to the stranger holding the lamp just outside the world, to the latecomers who always arrive after the scream and wonder if they missed the important part. "If the howl lifted the hair on your neck," she murmurs, "you belong with us. Come closer." We leave a light in the cave and a mark on the trail. And if the blood moon rises over your street tonight, don't pretend you didn't hear it. If the bell still echoes in your ribs, you belong here. Subscribe to Whispering Narratives and walk the ridge with us, where hunters become legends and the moon keeps score. Drop your theory below. Was it the bell, the pact, or the blood in their names? New horrors every week at 9 a.m. Bring a light. It won't help.